UNC Radio, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, it's Brian Gari calling from New York.
Brian Gari from New York. Hey. How you doing?
I'm glad you guys finally answered the phone.
Well, we were on the phone with another caller. It's one of the rare times when more than one person is trying to reach us. And usually it's the fire department trying to get us out of here. But how are you, Brian?
Who was it?
Well, I was talking to my old colleague and friend, a writer named Bruce Kluger, who's done a lot of satirical work, and he used to be an editor at Playboy magazine, where I used to work. We were in two different departments, so great guy.
That's a rather good magazine, wasn't it?
Well, I just read the articles. I never looked at the pictures.
Very good.
Because after a couple of days, they were stuck together after I was through them. But
Oh, you're disgusting.
Thank you. Yes, I am. Oh, I'm doing my Letterman moves on the TV here. So Brian Gari, let's explain. Brian Gari is the grandson, right, of the great Eddie Cantor.
Nice.
And he is also a composer and musician in his own right. He had a Broadway musical.
Friend of the
Late
neighborhood.
Night. He's a friend of the neighborhood. He's been on a couple of times. He's been
Yes.
on several of our New Year's shows as well. So, Brian, how are things with you? How are you musically? How's it going?
Well, things are okay.
Okay.
Here in New York, it's freezing. It's about 10 degrees right now, and we're really cold. But we're getting by. We're getting by.
Okay. I'm still getting heterosexual, but that's okay. That's a little joke there.
And I'm keeping busy. Last year, this time, I was preparing an album that did come out, and I'm real proud of it. It's to honor the late, great Don Ciccone from the Four Seasons and the Critters and Tommy James and the Shondells. Don Ciccone was the guy who sang lead with the Critters, and he sang Younger Girl, and he sang and wrote Mr. Dyingly Sad. And we did an album. Well, actually, it was an album that I put together of all the recordings that I could possibly find that he and I did together, and I had them orchestrated, which I was really proud of. I worked on orchestrations with a guy named Peter Milrose, and we put it all together and put out this album called Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari to honor Don's work. Don died in 2016.
But please tell everybody how they can get a copy of that record.
Well, that's on Amazon right now. In fact, I always tell people, go to the marketplace section of Amazon's Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari. Just look that up. Don Ciccone, it's Ciccone, Sings Brian Gari.
Is he related?
If you go to the marketplace sellers, it's only $14.99, so it's a lot cheaper than if you just buy it arbitrarily on Amazon. Go to the marketplace section of that title, Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari, and you'll find it for only $14.99. It's it fills up the entire 79 minutes, I believe, on a CD.
Well, let me ask you though. You're pronouncing it in a very specific way. Is he any relation to Madonna?
No, I mean, we always thought that was kind of funny because we said he was the first Ciccone to hit the music business, which is true. Don, if you think about it, the Critters came out in 64, 65, 66, around then. And I was a fan, and I wrote a fan letter to Don, and it turned out that he was in the Air Force at the time. He had gone into the Air Force so that he didn't end up in Vietnam, and but it took 4 years out of his career.
Wait a minute, wait. Hold it. He went into the Air Force because he didn't want to go to Vietnam. Weren't they sending
because if you volunteered to go into the service, you don't necessarily get sent to Vietnam. You have a little bit at that time. You had more priority.
So they sent the Army first. Yeah.
Say that again?
They sent the Army and Marines first, and the Air Force last or something, or the Navy probably last.
I don't know exactly. I just know that if you voluntarily and you did not get drafted at that time, then you had a better chance of surviving during wartime, during the Vietnam War.
Wow. Okay.
So, Don did his time, but it was 4 years, and that's a big chunk of time when you have a big hit record.
Yes, yeah.
And so he was actually in the service while his records were on the radio, and there was another guy in the group that was lip syncing to Don's voice.
Oh, wow.
And all the gigs they were getting, all that money that they made went into their pockets, not into Don's. So when Don came out, it was like 1970, I guess, and it was a whole new world. And by that time, we started getting friendlier, and I was 18 years old, and by the time I was 20, I got him a new record deal, and we had a record out called Bicycle Ride, and we didn't use the name Ciccone because, believe it or not, in 1972, we thought that wasn't cool to call yourself Ciccone. Nobody would know how to pronounce it and everything, so he was known as Don Marley.
Wow.
And it came out. The record came out, and I have since put that on this compilation, this Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari. I put the original record on in that collection from the original tapes.
So that album is out. That album is available on Amazon.
Yeah,
what have you
I'm
been
real proud
doing?
of that. It's a really good album, and there's a bonus section to it because, sadly, I don't even know how to describe this to people because it's just so incredible. But my other best friend was Alan Colmes, and some of you may remember
The broadcaster from MSNBC?
Right, from Fox, actually.
Oh, he's on Fox. Yeah, right.
Alan Hannity and Colmes. It was Alan Colmes, and Alan was a disc jockey in New Haven when I first heard of him, and I heard of him because my record with Don went to #1 in New Haven at WNHC, and it was Bicycle Ride, and that's the record I just spoke of. And so Don and Alan and I became closer and closer friends, and I have the tapes of the audio conversations between Don and Alan promoting the record. So I put the whole interview on that CD.
Well, I gotta.
You get out.
Yeah, I've got to say that a friend of mine.
You get Don Ciccone, all on the same CD.
Cool. A friend of mine was interning at Fox News several years ago and said that a lot of the people there were jerks, but one person who was definitely not a jerk was Alan Colmes.
Well, it truly amazes me that that he had such an incredibly wonderful reputation. It's such a wonderful reputation for being. Just 1 second here, please remove the. Okay.
Are you having a catheter installed? What are you removing there?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My wife had her computer on at the same time, and it was driving me crazy. His reputation as a human being, especially being in the presence of all these conservative Republicans, and Alan being the lone liberal at that station, but they all loved him. Everybody loved him there, and I don't know how you can sustain that kind of a reputation when you're not on their side, politically. But Alan was just a great guy, and here's more irony here. Both Alan, I've been married twice, and in both marriages, I had a best man, and the best man at one was Don Ciccone, and at another one was Alan Colmes.
Oh man!
And I lost them as my closest friends.
I'm sorry.
Inside of 4 months of each other. Don died in October of 2016, and Alan died in February of 2017 of this year.
Wow. Well, way to bring the show down.
No, but you know what? The way you bring it up is the fact that the music that's on this album is so catchy and so inspiring. I am so proud of this work. I did most of this work between the ages of 16 and 20 years old, and I'm just really, really proud to be able to present this to people and to memorialize two incredibly wonderful people, both Alan and Don.
Well, cool. I mean, I think that's great, and that people can share in this. But I also want to know, okay, the album's out. What are you working on now, Brian Gari?
Well, I'll be doing my annual birthday show in February 18th, over at Don't Tell Mama here in New York. I've always done a show on my birthday, and this is no exception. I'll be doing the songs from the Don Ciccone album at that birthday show. So I'll have to be working on that over the next month, rehearsing those songs, because, having written those songs between the ages of 16 and 20, I'll be turning 66 in February. Kind of hard to sing the songs in the exact same register, when you were 16 years old. But I'm going to try and get through that show, and I've hopefully will get back to a book that I've been writing. But it's been a while since I approached doing it. I got 19 chapters done, and I stopped because I've been taking care of my mom, who's just turned 90, and there's been a lot of responsibilities at home.
I gotcha. Okay, well, let's turn, before I let you go, Brian Gari, I do want to talk about, because one thing that Brian and I have in common, I mean, we've both written songs, right, and we're both theater people and stuff like that, but Brian and I also have appeared on the Joe Franklin television show. I was on there once. How many times were you on Joe Franklin?
It's almost countless. Joe gave me the opportunity to do that show, to promote anything that I was doing, and I never took advantage of that. When I asked to be on the show, first of all, he made me work at asking. I don't know if you did the same thing, but call me call me at 4 p.m. on Thursday, my friend. Call me Monday at 2. Call me Tuesday at 5.
He would do this for weeks.
My friend, he used to do this all the time. It drove me crazy. But if I really had a special time that I had to promote, he did eventually get me a booking on the show, and it was it was mainly local TV, here in New York. But then when WOR became WWOR and it became a superstation, it was seen around the country, around the world, I believe. The funny part is that Joe would, and I could say this now, but Joe would say things like, you're going to sell thousands of copies, thousands. I don't believe anyone went to the store at all the next day. I don't think one person, I don't think I made one sale. I'd go into Tower Records, I say, hey, I just did the Joe Franklin show yesterday. They went, yeah. And I said, well, how are the sales? They'd say, we're sending back your album. Nothing would sell. I would never get any sales off of doing his show. But I had the experience of doing television, and that was important. And I must say, and maybe you guys remember, the director's name is Bob Diamond, and he remains a very close friend of mine. He lives about a block away, and his direction of the Joe Franklin show was brilliant because he was creative. I would bring in some, photographs and things that could be used during the performance of my song. He would utilize those. He also knew when to get off of Joe, because Joe would be shuffling papers and reading something else while you were talking, and paying absolutely no attention, as you probably remember. Absolutely no attention to what you're saying, but he'll ask the other guest, hey, what do you think of Dave? What do you think of Dave, my friend? What do you think of what Dave just said? And, you have to be paying attention, because he wasn't. That was Joe's stick, So that's, I knew him for most of my adult life.
Wow.
He admired my grandfather so much. It was really
his grandfather, Eddie Cantor, of course. Yeah, and I've got a hand
Cantor. And I don't want to be. I would be remiss if I didn't mention somebody else who was born on this day in 1923, and he has since passed away. But a guy named Arthur Siegel, who wrote such wonderful songs. He wrote for Leonard Sillman's New Faces of 1952, and in that show was Ronnie Graham and Carol Lawrence and Paul Lynde and my uncle Robert Clary.
Oh, wait. And how is he doing, by the way? People might remember him from, it was Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan's Heroes, LeBeau.
Yeah, how's he doing? Because, we were going to get him on the show, and then I kind of dropped the ball on that, and he's kind of an old guy now, but how is he?
Well, he's an old guy, but he's and he'll tell you that. But he's before I forget, by the way, Arthur Siegel wrote "Love Is a Simple Thing," which is a really incredible song, and it's a standard. It was recorded by hundreds of people, and he was the closest friend of Robert Clary's. Robert is 91 years old, and he's doing great.
Good.
And he still drives around L.A., and last time we were there, we spent some time with, we stay at Robert's house, and then we visited Carl Reiner, and it was a wonderful time, and we're going out again to see him in March.
Well, do me a favor, just remind...
March 1st, he'll turn 92.
Well, do me a favor, if I forget, or just give me his contact info, because I would truly love to get Robert Clary on the radio program. Well,
he might make an exception because he truly does not go out and promote anything. He says, "Look, I'm 91. I've done it my whole life. Now I'm just relaxing. I go out to dinner. I watch movies. And he loves game shows. He watches all the game shows and sports. And he loves sports on TV and everything. So,
well, if he wants to do a phone call, I'm sorry.
That's what he does with his life.
Yeah, but I'm saying if he doesn't mind doing a phone call, it would be great to have him on the show. For like 20 minutes.
If anybody can make him do it, I'll do it.
Thanks. Well, we thank you, by the way, Brian Gari, for calling in to our New Year's special here on Dave's Gone By. I certainly wish you continued health, the health of other of your friends who didn't pass away this past year, and good things for your family. And remind everybody again the name of the album and where they can get it on Amazon.
Absolutely, and I hope they do get it. I'm sure that they know Don Ciccone's voice and everything from the Four Seasons. I mean, once again, Don, when he was with the Four Seasons, he was the high voice that did "Who Loves You, Pretty Baby."
I thought I was.
He did that part, and he did on December '63. He did "Rolling Ball of Thunder, Taking My Body Under." That whole section there. That's all Don Ciccone. So. What I would remind people would be is you go on Amazon, go to Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari, and go to the little, who else sells it, and just look for the $14.99 price, because that's the one to get.
It's such a Jewish thing to say. It's like, when you're flipping through albums...
No, you know what it is? I got to tell you why.
Why?
There's a pricing on there that's absolutely insane. I don't know why they do it, but they've got it for like $23 or something like that. I don't want anybody paying that much for a CD that should only cost $14.99, That's the best price to get. And, I'm just trying to make sure that people get the right one and not pay an over amount of money. And some people have made the mistake sometimes of just clicking on it and saying, "Oh, that's the one I bought." I go, "You don't have to pay that much. It's only $14.99."
$14.99 for the CD. We get it. So, but you can get it on Amazon, and please pay that price and not anything more than that. Remind people the name of again, the actual name of the CD is.
It's called Don Ciccone Sings Brian Gari.
I literally, on the computer, I just make a move like Joe Franklin used to do with my fingers. I'm like, please remind people the name of the album. We are here with Brian Gari calling into the radio program. We wish him a very happy New Year, a happy life, happy love, happy good things here from the Dave's Gone By New Year's special. Brian, it is wonderful to hear from you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much, and all good things.
Happy New Year to you guys, too, and thanks again for having me on the show every year.
Hey. May it continue for 50 more years, man.
Yes, 150.
I hope so.
Have a good night. Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New Year, folks.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.